is moving. I think it is well that we take the advice of a very famous campaigner. Let's look at the record. Is the United States standing still? Is it true that this administration that Senator Kennedy has charged has been an administration of retreat, of defeat, of stagnation? Is it true that as far as this country is concerned, in the field of electric power, in all of the fields that he has mentioned, we have not been moving ahead? Well, we have a comparison that we can make. We have the record of the Truman administration of 7.5 years and the 7.5 years of the Eisenhower administration. When we compare these two records in the areas that Senator Kennedy has discussed tonight, I think we find that America has been moving ahead. Let's take schools. We have built more schools in these last 7.5 years than we built in the previous 7.5, for that matter, in the previous 20 years. Let's take hydroelectric power. We have developed more hydroelectric power in these 7.5 years than was developed in any previous administration in history. Let us take hospitals. We find that more have been built in this administration than in the previous administration. The same is true of highways. Let's put it in terms that all of us can understand. We often hear gross national product discussed, and in that respect, may I say that when we compare the growth in this administration with that of the previous administration, that then there was a total growth of 11% over 7 years. In this administration, there has been a total growth of 19% over 7 years. That shows that there's been more growth in this administration than in its predecessor. But let's not put it there. Let's put it in terms of the average family. What has happened to you? We find that your wages have gone up 5 times as much in the Eisenhower administration as they did in the Truman administration. What about the prices you pay? We find that the prices you pay went up 5 times as much in the Truman administration as they did in the Eisenhower administration. What's the net result of this? This means that the average family income went up 15% in the Eisenhower years as against 2% in the Truman years. Now, this is not standing still. But, good as this record is, may I emphasize, it isn't enough. A record is never something to stand on. It's something to build on. And in building on this record, I believe that we have the secret for progress. We know the way to progress. And I think, first of all, our own record proves that we know the way. Senator Kennedy has suggested that he believes he knows the way. I respect the sincerity with which he makes that suggestion. But on the other hand, when we look at the various programs that he offers, they do not seem to be new. They seem to be simply retreads of the programs of the Truman administration which preceded. And I would suggest that during the course of the evening he might indicate those areas in which his programs are new, where they will mean more progress than we have then. What kind of programs are we for? We are for programs that will expand educational opportunities, that will give to all Americans their equal chance for education, for all of the things which are necessary and dear to the hearts of our people. We are for programs, in addition, which will see that our medical care for the aged is much better handled than it is at the present time. Here again, may I indicate that Senator Kennedy and I are not in disagreement as to the aim. We both want to help the old people. We want to see that they do have adequate medical care. The question is the means. I think that the means that I advocate will reach that goal better than the means that he advocates. I could give better examples, but for whatever it is, whether it's in the field of housing, or health, or medical care, or schools, or the development of electric power, we have programs which we believe will move America, move her forward, and build on the wonderful record that we have made over these past 7.5 years. Now, when we look at these programs, might I suggest that in evaluating them, we often have a tendency to say that the test of a program is how much you're spending. I will concede that in all the areas to which I have referred, Senator Kennedy would have the federal government spend more than I would have to spend. I costed out the cost of the Democratic platform. It runs a minimum of $13.2 billion a year more and we are presently spending, to a maximum of $18 billion a year more than we're presently spending. Now, the Republican platform will cost more, too. It will cost a minimum of $4 billion a year more, a maximum of $4.9 billion a year more than we're presently spending. Now, does this mean that his program is better than ours? Not at all. Because it isn't a question of how much the federal government spends. It isn't a question of which government does the most. It's a question of which administration does the right thing. And in our case, I do believe that our programs will stimulate the creative energies of 180 million free Americans. I believe the programs that Senator Kennedy advocates will have a tendency to stifle those creative energies. I believe, in other words, that his program would lead to the stagnation of the motive power that we need in this country to get power. The final point that I would like to make is this. Senator Kennedy has suggested in his speeches that we lack compassion for the poor, for the old, and for others that are unfortunate. Let us understand throughout this campaign that his motives and mine are sincere. I know what it means to be poor. I know what it means to see people who are unemployed. I know Senator Kennedy feels as deeply about these problems as I do. But our disagreement is not about the goals for America, but only about the means to reach those goals.
Can you see the sweat on his chin? Well, let's talk, this is good. So let's see what you have in comparison. JFK, the one thing I didn't mention, I should have mentioned, is that the theme of the debate was domestic affairs. They had to talk about things within the United States. And what was Kennedy's philosophy as far as federal government versus state government, Megan?
He didn't really want to be federal government.
That's exactly right. He wanted the states to take responsibility and do their job. He wasn't big on federal government, but he wanted the federal government to do the right things. Now, he talked about the 17 million people that are 65 or over that were getting a $78 a month Social Security check. So did he hit the elderly a little bit? Okay. What else? What else might? Who do you reference to many, many times? What's that? No, it wasn't Lincoln. Who do you reference several times? What? Well, Jimmy Hoffa, we'll get to that. Who? Franklin Roosevelt. He said several things about Franklin Roosevelt, because Franklin Roosevelt, he's saying about Truman? No. So, you know what you see what he's doing? He's pointing out the good things. But Truman had some good things, but some issues. Now, let's talk about Jimmy Hoffa. Jimmy Hoffa, you don't know much about him yet, but you will, was the head of the Teamsters Union, which had a lot of ties to organized crime or the mafia. And Kennedy, as a senator, and his brother Robert Kennedy in the Justice Department really went after Jimmy Hoffa to try to get him thrown in jail. And a lot of conspiracy theorists, which I do not believe in, think that the mafia, the one that killed the Kennedys. But he was after Jimmy Hoffa. He had a lot of disagreements with Jimmy Hoffa over how he was running the Teamsters Union illegally. So that was that reference. So Kennedy kind of took a shot at the Republicans not doing much, and we can do better in this area, we can do better in this area, we can do better in this area. And just kind of went that aspect of things and talked about how Franklin Roosevelt and the Democratic Party, we need to kind of get back that way of thinking. Now Nixon, what do you think about the appearance? Could you see a difference in appearance? I mean, would you have noticed that if you're watching, like, whoa, you know what I mean? Did Kennedy look healthier than Nixon? And actually, Kennedy is a very unhealthy person his entire life. And we'll talk about that. He actually took adrenaline shots and things like that to keep his appearance up. He was very, very sickly, Kennedy was, his whole life. For Nixon, not so much. He was sickly this day. Well, how does this debate compare to the one you watched with Clinton and Trump? Any interrupting? Any negative things really said about personal each other? No. Matter of fact, Nixon, early in his opening statement, agreed with a lot of the things Kennedy said. I agree we need to do this. I agree we need to do this. I agree we need to do this. We might have a little different philosophy in how we're going to do it, but it's nothing like you see today. I mean, you can't hardly believe it. Now, who did Nixon compare the Truman administration, or excuse me, I gave it away. Nixon compared the Truman administration and the Eisenhower administration and how much better the Eisenhower administration was, that they were all over doing things on school construction, hydroelectric power, hospital construction, highways. The gross national product is really the supply and demand of our country. And he said that it was at 11% during the Truman administration and the 19% during the Eisenhower administration. He mentioned, like I did, that wages went up 5 times from the Truman administration to the Eisenhower administration, but prices went up 5 times in the Truman administration compared to the Nixon administration. So he's trying to justify, and these are the things that Kennedy basically is saying, and you'll see later, he's just giving you lip service to those things he's saying. Okay? He talks about Kennedy's plans are just retreads of the Truman administration, and maybe if he's going to have new plans, he needs to be more specific. That was really the only shot anybody took at each other, really. I mean, it wasn't a bad shot, but he said, if he's going to talk about new programs, you tell me the difference between your programs and the ones that Truman was doing. He explained his new programs. He talked about educational opportunities. He talked about medical care for the elderly. We're going to help the old people. I thought that was interesting. But I'm going to figure out what the deaf, where do you get to the old person, Then he hit him hard on what? Spending money, being a spendthrift. He said the Democratic platform is going to cost $13.2 billion and as much up to $18 billion. The Republican platform is going to cost more, $4.4 billion to $4.9 billion. But he mentioned the spendthrift. And he talked about how he knew how it was before, and alluding to the fact that Kennedy would have absolutely no idea what it would like to be poor. So anyway, anybody add anything? I mean, I've sat here and talked with him. Anybody else have anything you thought was interesting that maybe I didn't mention as far as this debate goes? So so I just got everything. What's that? That's a good question. Kennedy doesn't have a speech impediment. He's got a Massachusetts speech impediment. But he did really well here. But in a lot of speeches, he would stop and say, or. In his speeches, he stops a lot in the middle of it. Well, I want to tell you about, Will, and Will likes, he does a lot of that. I was surprised in this opening speech he had none of that, but when you hear speeches later, he does a lot of the stopping. But it's not so much a speech impediment as it's a Massachusetts drawl, and it's very distinct, and he's very, very proud of that. So good point. Anybody in this row have anything else that maybe it stuck out like whoa or whatever? How about this crew here? Okay, anybody here?
Kennedy kind of looked like a deer in the headlights.
Which one?
Kennedy.
Looked like a deer? Like he was...
He was staring at the camera the whole time. He didn't move at all.
So do you think he had a scared...
He's moved.
Do you think he had a scared appearance or a very stern appearance? Looked terrified?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
I didn't think Nixon looked bad. I didn't know. Other than he had a little sweat.
His
eyebrows more.
I thought he was
kind of just like
used to
say
speaking.
he doesn't
I
have.
thought he was a better speaker on it.
In fact,
I
Nixon
thought
was...
I liked
I
what
thought it
Kennedy
was-
said, but I
I
thought
thought it was
Nixon
more
was better
enjoyable to
speaker.
listen to Kennedy than it was, like, I just found myself getting lost.
This Nixon really was on good behavior because he later in his life, and earlier, when he ran for the House and the Senate, he was really an ornery bastard, to be honest with you. And he was very, very kind here. So that's a good point. Anybody else have, in this row, anybody notice anything different? Anybody here?
I just thought Nixon did turn out really good. I just thought it was first.
Okay. Well, it wasn't bad, but I think voters, you've got to put yourself in the perspective. What you saw here today is some people's first ever picture in their mind of either candidate, because there was no TV prior to that. So 70 million people got their shot here. Okay? Well, anyway, I thought it'd be nice to write down a few things. If we get some time, we might continue some more of this debate. Get a little free time, maybe Friday or something, show some more, I don't know.
I thought it was good Nixon did more.
I didn't know how puffy his cheeks were.
Yeah, he had statistics, Nixon did, that's very good.
Yeah, I just realized.
Well, it gave you an idea what they were like anyway. We may watch some more later.
His cheeks were like.